What's going on, man? Welcome back to the basement. I'm Ron, and week 4 is officially in the books, which means it's time to make our waiver wire claims for week 5. And this one's super important. Not only are there good players on the waiver wire, but bye weeks are happening, injuries are happening, and there are genuine holes to fill in your lineup. There is no longer this urgency to get fun bench stashes and guys for the future, but you might have literally air in your RB2 spot. It just is what it is. Guys like Bijan Robinson, Josh Jacobs are both on buys this week. Maybe you got an injury like a Malik Neighbors that hit your roster. Now all of a sudden you are scrambling. So today we are going to talk through my must-add waiver wire targets for week 5 of the fantasy football season. All of these players are under 50% owned on ESPN, and we are going to go far and wide. We are going to talk about priority ads up top and then go 5 to 10 deep at running back, wide receiver, and then cover you with some tight ends and quarterbacks at the end. As always, if you enjoy, leave a like, subscribe if you're new. And our first priority ad, really our only priority ad, is Woody Marks. Now, the way that this video works is we'll have our priority ads. These are guys that I am bidding 10% or more of my fab budget on as like real go unload the clip on these players. And then after that, we'll talk about the running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, quarterbacks that are kind of the leftover players. Now, this video is how I just kind of get my list together. And then after this, over on the Patreon, patreon.com/Ron Stewart, I will sit down to write my little article called the Fab Guide and Waiver Wire Report, where I go through 10 plus running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, quarterbacks, all of that good stuff, and give you exactly how much fab I'm bidding on all of them with some notes, and all of them are ranked. You can find that in the description and the comment section down below. But with Woody Marks, we've been talking about Woody Marks for a while. He was, I think, on the thumbnail of an early waiver wire video as well. But if he's still out there on waivers, he needs to be the first priority at this point. He goes, in terms of the rookie running back carousel we've been doing over on the top 10 takeaways video, he goes 28% of the snaps, 49% of the snaps, 58% of the snaps, just slowly taking over this backfield, and that's what we're looking for from these rookies, and the takeover has happened. He had 17 carries in this game, 69 yards, a touchdown, 4 catches, 50 yards receiving, and this is a team that's been looking for a spark on the ground, and they found it in Woody Marks. Nick Chubb has been ineffective. Dameon Pierce has been a healthy scratch. Dario Ogunbowale is not involved at this point, so it's wheels up for Woody Marks, who at this point in time is probably all the way ascended up into your, I would say that in terms of the rookie running back landscape, he's in that Bill, Henderson, Harvey tier of like an RB3 to high-end RB3, maybe even ahead of those guys, because I would feel more comfortable starting him as soon as this week. Now, of course, I wouldn't have him in the Scatabo, Quinshon Judkins, like firm RB2 area, but this week when I sit down to make my rankings, he's probably going to be in that mix as like the RB27 this week or RB25, something like that, as a guy you can start right away moving forward, which is really, really exciting. Now, he's our only priority ad. Everybody else this week are guys that I'm not really crazy about putting, a 15% or 20% bid on. But as always, if you are needy at these positions or you need a fill-in, feel free to be aggressive on some of these players. With the running backs, we are going to talk about Kenneth Gainwell first. Now, again, not a priority ad. I wouldn't unload the clip on Kenneth Gainwell. I know he had a monster day, right? He went out there, he had like 2 touchdowns, he had all the fantasy points in the world. He looked amazing. This is his usage from from Fantasy Life, Matthew Berry's site, where he had 77% of the snaps, 73% of the rush attempts, 68% of the routes, like an amazing, amazing role with 31.4 PPR points. Now, here's the thing. Jaylen Warren will eventually be back, and the Steelers go into a bye week. That's why I'm not crazy about Gainwell, because then you have to grab him, and then he's going to sit on your bench for a week, and then Jaylen Warren's going to get healthy, and then he just is what he's been from weeks 1 through 3, which is somebody in a split backfield that is probably more of like a high-end RB, really more of a high-end RB4, low-end RB3 when that's the case, but he has showed enough to be rostered pretty much everywhere. And I will say, too, this is something a little bit different. This is just easier for me to do. Like, these are the screenshots of the running backs, and in parentheses is how the percentage of teams that they are rostered on in ESPN League. So Kendre Miller is our second running back here. He's rostered in only 5.6% of ESPN leagues right now. He needs to be swept up off of waivers at this point. He has been really good, where he has actually increased his snap share in every game so far. This is via Jacob Gibbs. He had a 41% snap rate in the first half of week 4, and he was on the field for 5 of 7 red zone plays, which is a big deal. If he can kind of unseat Kamara for carries and then some of the red zone role, all of a sudden he can carve out a startable role on a weekly basis. And if not, then he is one of the best handcuffs in the game right now. He had 11 carries, 65 yards, and a touchdown this past week versus the Bills. And you can see the chart on the bottom by Ian Hartitz in terms of missed tackles forced per carry and yards after contact per carry. He has been super, super efficient. He was a fun round 3 TCU prospect. If anybody remembers, he competed with Zach Evans back in the day, who was like a Debbie Darling, and he ended up kind of unseating him at TCU. And he had high hopes, but he was just kind of buried by the previous regime. So him now getting a shot in the NFL is very exciting because Kendre Miller has upside, but he's definitely more like he's not a receiving threat. He had 0 targets in this game. I'm trying to think of like a decent comp for him. But he is kind of like, he's almost like the Saints' Braylon Allen is kind of the comp I would throw out there, which isn't really a diss to Kendre Miller. Then somebody up next we have is Tyler Algier. He shouldn't be available anywhere, but he's a premium handcuff with standalone value. When the Falcons are winning games, they love to lean on Algier down the stretch. He's amazing in that late game hammer role. It's something weird where like 100% we see all the time. There's a goal line roll, there's a third down and 2-minute drill roll, but the Falcons have their own late game hammer roll that they reserve for Algier. His only games this year with 10 plus PPR points, I believe, are in Falcons wins, where in the fourth quarter when they're holding a lead and trying to salt away the game, they just start giving Algier the ball, and he's actually converting first downs and scoring touchdowns at a high rate. He's the RB39 on the year, which you'll take. Like a high-end RB3 you can stick in your lineup when you're down bad isn't terrible. He is on bye this week, though. Then we have Rachaad White, and then I'll also add Sean Tucker in here as well, where Sean Tucker needs to be added off of waivers just because the Bucky Irving injury right now is kind of spooky. I was watching the game on Sunday, and I could have sworn that Bucky Irving had like a high ankle sprain, and then he just pops up and plays the rest of the game and looks amazing. I was like, okay, whatever. But now we're getting reports that there is an injury to be concerned about. This is from Draft Sharks here, saying that Bucky Irving got an MRI for an undisclosed injury. Buccaneers head coach Todd Bowles said Monday that Bucky Irving is one of several players scheduled for an MRI. Bowles gave no further details about Irving's status. He appeared to tweak an ankle in the second half of Sunday's loss. So we'll see. I hope it's fine. Like, I have plenty of Bucky. We want him to be healthy, but in the event that he's not, Rachaad White is the number 1 handcuff. But Sean Tucker, we've seen in the past, as recently as last year, be really efficient and really solid when given the opportunity. So I think both Buccaneers running backs need to be rostered in fantasy leagues. Then we can talk about our 5th running back ad here, Blake Corum. What is he doing only rostered in 18.7% of ESPN leagues? He is a handcuff for Sean McVay. We have seen Sean McVay make Cam Akers and Darrell Henderson and C.J. Anderson and even Ronnie Rivers at times, like fantasy relevant. Whoever is the Rams running back scores fantasy points. And if Kyron Williams, somebody with a long history of injuries and ankle issues and foot issues, was to ever go down, Blake Corum would be a top 15 running back start on a weekly basis, one of the best handcuffs in the NFL. We also have a tweet here from Ryan Heath showing that this split just keeps on coming back towards Blake Corum, where this week, Kyron Williams saw just 59% of the backfield's carries. That's his lowest in an active game since week 12 of 2023. Aside from that, he hasn't been at sub 60% since week 1 of 2023 before Cam Akers was cut. So this staff loves Corum. He's been good. He's been explosive. I don't think that he is going to just straight up beat out Kyron Williams, but I think he's building up enough goodwill that if Kyron was to go down, that Corum would be the 60%, 70% guy in a very solid offense. We can also talk about our 6th best ad here as Justice Hill. His role just is what it is. I wouldn't go crazy about Justice Hill. I know that he scored a bunch of points, but you're going to have the exact right game script for him to do anything. But he is somebody you can throw in your lineup and hope for like 7 or 8 PPR points. DeMarcado is the same thing in a worse offense where just like the Cardinals, he is the Cardinals, Justice Hill, passing down specialist, satellite back. So the Cardinals should lose more games than the Ravens in theory. So DeMarcado should be decent, but he should be rostered as like a desperation RB start. And then same thing with Isaiah Davis. Braylon Allen goes down. He's in that same role for the Jets that we just talked about with DeMarcado and Justice Hill. These are literally just like PPR scam backs you hope to throw in your lineup. You hope that their team is trailing and they catch a couple passes in the 2-minute drill, and you just kind of keep it moving from there. But after the Braylon Allen injury, it was pretty much a 67-33, like 2/3 to 1/3 split between him and Breece Hall. Shout out to Dave Richard for that info. Then we can talk about the wide receivers this week. And first up, we have Luther Burden. He's still only rostered in 12.7% of, or 12. Where did I even get 12.7% from, fellas? 11.9% of ESPN leagues. We have Luther Burden. Now, I did talk about at the top, if you need a starter, right? Like if you have a Malik Neighbors issue, Luther Burden is not on your radar. This is more of a you're 4-0 or you're 3-1 and you're just looking for stash players that have late season upside. That is what Luther Burden is giving you. I show this tweet nonstop, but this is the part of the year where you have to remember this. When you are grabbing rookie wide receivers off of waivers, you are hoping to hit on one of these guys. Since 2010, 21 rookie wide receivers have posted 16-plus points per game from Week 9 on. We've seen high-end studs, Odell Beckham Jr., Mike Evans, Justin Jefferson, Malik Neighbors. But we've also seen guys that are kind of unsung heroes in fantasy football, whether that's Elijah Moore or Amon-Ra St. Brown or Tank Dell or Juju Smith-Schuster as a rookie or Tyreek Hill when he was a rookie, Jaden Reed, Puka Nacua, Rashee Rice, guys that are kind of more off the beaten path, and Luther Burden could be one of those guys, along with any of the rookie wide receivers we mentioned on this list, which we'll also talk about. Alec Io-Manor. Really, neither of these guys should be on your waivers. We talked about Luther Burden and Alec Io-Manor dating back to before the season, to now, to like week 1. If they're on waivers in your league and you watch this channel, that just is shocking to me. We can look at the rookie receiver report if we'd like to. On Alec Io-Manor, he goes from 68% of the routes in week 2. Then he goes to 76% and then 90% of the routes, which is absolutely massive. His per route metrics aren't terrible, and he is now just kind of unseated Calvin Ridley as the wide receiver 1 in this offense. And yes, Cam Ward has been bad, but once upon a time this offseason, Calvin Ridley was the wide receiver 1 in this offense, getting drafted in like the 5th and 6th round. So Alec Io-Manor is somebody who needs to be rostered as a fun flex option moving forward. We can also talk about Romeo Doubs, but some of these bye week teams are tough because Doubs just went crazy, but you then pick him up just to stash him on your bench. But he is the only Packers wide receiver to average 80% or more of the routes this season. He just had 3 touchdowns in this most recent game. So Romeo Doubs is a fine flex option moving forward. Then we can talk about Troy Franklin. He must have gotten dropped because last week he was at around 50% rostered on ESPN. He's now down to 43.5%. If he was dropped, go grab him. He has 27 targets this season. That is tied with Courtland Sutton for the most on the Broncos. And he's run 80% or more of the routes in each of the last 3 weeks. Of course, his big game came in week 2. And he's been quiet since then, but he's still somebody that I am looking to stash because the volume is there and the routes are there right now. Then we can also talk about Jalen Coker. He is available everywhere. He could be back off of IR as soon as this week, which is going to be a really nice game for the Panthers passing game on the road in the New Orleans Dome against a Kellen Moore offense that speeds the tempo, wants to lull you into a shootout, and that would be really good for Jalen Coker, where outside of Tetairoa McMillan, they are begging for a receiving option in this passing game. Our 6 ad here is Christian Kirk. He's not been great, but he's running routes for Houston as somebody you can probably flex in tough spots. Same deal with Darius Slayton. I'm not crazy about him, but with Malik Neighbors hurt, he is the next man up. Really, the issue for him is that I don't know. Like, I like Jackson Dart. He scrambles a ton, but he had like less than 150 passing yards in his first start. I just don't know if there's enough passing volume for anyone outside of Wan'Dale Robinson to be startable. 8, we have Malik Washington. Tyreek Hill hurt. You have Waddle. You do have Nick Westbrook-Akine, but I'm just not interested in Nick Westbrook-Akine. Malik Washington's interesting. He's a year 2 player. Last year, he flashed some per route efficiency. This year, they've been loving to use him as like a gadget player, end-around guy, bubble screen guy. And if he can now just kind of ascend up the depth chart and be their wide receiver too, I think he has some real upside here. And then we can also talk about Isaiah Bond, where he is a rookie upside stash with Cedric Tillman hurt. He has gone from 39% of the routes to 58% to now 71% in week 4. Nothing really to write home about. He did have a good game here where he commanded some targets. I think he had like over 50 receiving yards. So you will definitely take that with your rookie wide receiver in Isaiah Bond. It's just like this passing environment has been so bad. They get Minnesota next week. That's going to be a really tough matchup. But Bond had 6 targets, 3 catches, 58 yards in this most recent week. And he's interesting too. He was I think he was a UDFA, if I'm remembering correctly. I think he was a UDFA because he had some off-the-field issues, but he probably would have been drafted in like round 3 if not for off-the-field concerns. So he's definitely somebody who is better than his draft capital would imply. Then we can get going to our tight ends here. And I just make sure to put a bunch here just in case if your league is super deep or one of these guys are rostered. We have Fannin. It looks like a lot of people have dropped Fannin. He just had a season high in route share. He didn't look amazing, but we take that usage all day long. Then we can talk about Brenton Strange, who right now is the tight end 14 on the year. He's running routes. He has a good role in the Jaguars. Then we have Darren Waller. He scored 2 touchdowns last night, which is hilarious, but he only ran 36% of the routes. So he's not somebody I would start right away, but you can absolutely stash him. And then once he works up to 70% plus of the routes, which should be in the next week or so, then you can throw him in your lineup and feel very good about that. Then we have Dalton Schultz. For as long as Cade Stover is out, he's running over 80% of the routes. He hasn't really converted that into fantasy football usage or fantasy football like production yet, but he did have a season high in target share last week, and he has run over 80% of the routes in back-to-back weeks. Then we can talk about Mason Taylor, who looked really solid last night. I was obviously the Jets game was brutal. We took the Breece Hall jersey down. I'm done repping the Jets in the background. We do have the green light still on. I had some of the fellas over last night. We put the green light on to get the vibes going, and holy shit. That was just brutal. But Mason Taylor was one of the lone bright spots. LSU guy with Odell Beckham back there. He had 7 targets, 5 catches, 65 yards. It actually looked really, really solid. He's been running over 70% of the routes in every single game this year, and we've really just been waiting for him to show anything. I'm not crazy about him just because the environment's tough. Like, Fields is never going to pass for a ton of yards. I don't know if anybody will be a weekly starter outside of Garrett Wilson in this passing offense, but if anybody could do it, it would be Taylor just because of how low the bar is for a tight end, and he is somebody who does have rookie upside and could be a solid player long term. So I haven't looked at his per route stuff from last night, but 7 targets, 5 catches, 65 yards is really strong usage for him. And then you have Oronde Gadsden, who is still a rookie stash for me. We saw in the rookie receiver report that he went from 0% of the routes, 28% of the routes, to a team leading among tight ends, 50% of the routes. His per route metrics are amazing. I don't know that he ever ascends to the point where we get to like 70% plus of the routes and then also finding enough volume outside of Ladd McConkey, Quentin Johnston, and Keenan Allen, but we will see. He's a fun rookie upside stash, especially in like super deep 16-teamer leagues or like tight end premium leagues. Gadsden's a great stash. And then we can talk about our quarterbacks here. I like Jackson Dart. He led the league in designed rushes this past week. I believe he had 7 designed rushes, which is so much. That's just like QB sneaks, zone reads. I don't think that that's going to be that high every week. Like, really, like 3+ is the sweet spot. That's about where your guys like Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen all live. If Dart can live in that range and then also add his scrambling and then also add some passing efficiency, he's going to be startable every week. And he gets... I just realized I screwed up earlier. Damn. The Jalen Coker blurb, the Panthers do not play the Saints this week. I don't know why I thought they did. Jalen Coker plays the Saints this week. Jalen Coker plays Miami this week. The Saints play the Giants this week. That's what I meant to say. Because when I wrote up these quarterbacks, I think that I mixed them up with like Bryce Young. Bryce Young is playing Miami and Jalen Coker's playing Miami. Regardless, Miami's defense isn't good. So Jalen Coker's still a fine buy or a fine pickup off of waivers. I don't know. I'll see if I get around to editing that, but it is tough with these waiver wire videos. I'm trying to get it out as quick as possible. So I'll make the note here. Maybe I'll comment below this that the Jalen Coker thing, that's my bad. But he plays Miami, who's also a bad secondary that you would be looking for him to have a big game against if he was back healthy. But Jackson Dart actually gets the Saints on the road in the New Orleans Dome, a team that is allowing the 6th most points to quarterbacks, and Kellen Moore is going to speed up both sides of the ball. And then Bryce Young has Miami this week, who is allowing the 2nd most points to opposing quarterbacks in fantasy football. But that is going to do it for us today. We went through our priority ads, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, quarterbacks, everything you need to know as waivers roll tonight into tomorrow. As always, if you want my full write-up for every player, that can be out there over on the Patreon. My waiver wire and fab article is there. Then my rest of season rankings will be out tomorrow morning. Then my weekly rankings will be out Thursday. Everything you need to go out there, win your matchups, dominate your league will be on the Patreon in the description and the comment section down below. But if you can't support there, just leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and I will see y'all in the next one.
Stones, like this froze, ice cold, oh.